Okay, this is the first of two fairly quick videos of the overviews of the technology treadmill material. This particular video is simply going to focus on the first situation we covered, in which we look at how technology change occurs and how in a situation when markets can adjust. All right, so what we first have is technology A right here, and as you can see at the price of $70, that technology generates a zero profit. So that price of 70 is the break-even price for technology A. So what we have then is an initial technology adoption in moving the cost curves, both the marginal cost curve and the average total cost curve. So that's for A, for technology A. And what they do is they just shift straight down. All right. So the idea is that, what does that that parallel shift down represent? Well, basically it says that at any level of output, the marginal costs have come down. Marginal costs have come down. The average total costs have come down. So it's pretty straightforward to say that if at any given level of output your cost of producing the next good or your unit cost of production so far has come down, then that's essentially a productivity enhancing technology. All right, so let's get rid of that stuff. All right, so again, we have this idea that that this technology adoption has occurred, and we think it's a good thing. It's the shift straight down. So what are the implications? So we've already determined that at any given level of output, there is our lower cost, marginal cost, or average total cost. More in more specificity, what happens? Well, if we look at the profit maximizing level of output, remember profit maximization is determined where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So if we look at for the original technology, our profit maximizing level of output is approximately 7 or 8 units, right? But with the shift down of the cost curves with the adoption of technology, we look for the new marginal revenue, marginal cost, and again, the marginal revenue, since the price has not changed yet, our marginal revenue is still the same because the marginal revenue is in this situation is the price. We look at the new marginal cost curve and look to where it intersects the same price, and what we've seen is there's an increase in the level of output in terms of the profit maximizing level of output. So just with the technology adoption, we see that firms are increasing their level of output, and if you wanted to go ahead and practice the 5 steps of showing the profit, you would see that the profit's going from 0 to a positive profit. Okay, and I'm not going to do that here because we did that in class, and there's other videos for finding that. Okay, so so we've pretty much established that this technology adoption is a good thing. So after one firm adopts, there's still no change to the price, right? Because we can say, generally speaking, in our basic micro theory, that an individual firm is so small relative to the overall market that its behaviors individually cannot impact the price. But the fact that in adopting the technology you went from a profit of 0 to a positive profit, you're likely to find more firms in the industry saying, hey, yeah, that's what I want to do. So they also adopt the technology. Their individual cost curves shift down from A to B. They increase their profit maximizing level of output, and they increase their overall profit. So again, this is kind of normal intuitive behavior. This remember, all firms are profit maximizers. This is what they do because this is their objectives. And so the question is, at what point does the price start getting impacted, right? So we wouldn't necessarily expect in micro theory that, oh yeah, well, there's only upside to this. Everyone just keeps adopting the technology. Everyone keeps increasing their output. Everyone keeps goes from a zero profit to positive profit. Everything's good. Well, it doesn't happen that way. The market has mechanisms to kind of choke off this growth in a way. Oh, and one thing I should also mention, the idea that the existence of a positive profit with the adoption of the new technology is also quite attractive to firms from outside this industry. Normally speaking, we say that in general equilibrium, all firms, all industries make similar profits. This means there's no particular benefit to switching from one industry to another because you're essentially going from a zero economic profit in one industry to a zero economic profit in another industry. But as soon as you have this introduction of a new technology, there's kind of a disequilibrium is introduced. And so firms from other industries will say, hey, I want to enter this industry where I can move from my current zero profit to a positive profit. So you not only have firms in the industry adopting the technology and increasing their output, but you also have firms entering the market and when they enter the market, they'll adopt the new technology, and they'll also add to the overall market production and also gain a positive profit. So that's another mechanism that's at work. So how do we capture that mechanism? Okay, so what we have to keep in mind in terms of the market is, again, we have our usual supply and demand curve. We have our usual market equilibrium price and quantity. And the thing is, so this price here, right, in the market, remember, this is the market curve, this is that initial price of 70, right? But as we recall from our shifter categories and everything, with the adoption of the technology, which we saw increase the level of output, and with the firms coming in from outside the market, so that category is the number of firms, an increase in the number of firms, what we see is a shift to the right of the supply curve. And what does that do to the market price? Well, we get a new equilibrium price. So the market price comes down, our market quantity goes up, which makes sense because firms are coming in from outside the market, firms are already in the market, are adopting the technology and increasing their level of output. So this all makes sense. But the key thing is the price comes down, the market price comes down. So let's say it goes down to 65. So what are the implications? Well, first of all, for those firms who have not adopted the technology, now their profit maximizing level of output is decreased. And if you did the 5 steps of showing the profit for that cost curve, you would find that they would be starting to run a loss. Their profits would become negative. So that's more of an incentive for them for firms who have not yet adopted the technology to do so. If we look at the implications of this lower market price for the firms who have already adopted, well, we have a new marginal revenue line, and the marginal cost curve is still the same, but they have to reduce their production, right? Because the price has come down. They are still generating a positive profit, though. So the key thing now is profits are smaller, but positive for the firms that have adopted the technology. And so because there's still positive profits, there's still a motivation for firms to come into the market. So we still have this idea of technology adoption for those somewhat lagging firms already in the industry. We have this increase in the number of firms by firms coming from outside the industry and adding to the overall market. And what do we have? Well, we have a continued shift out of the supply curve in the market. It lowers the price again, right? So we can say, okay, it goes down to 60, right? And the cycle repeats itself. So, so we see that firms still with the old technology are losing more money. They're reducing their production even more. Firms who have already adopted the technology are still slightly decreasing their level of profit maximizing output, but still generating a positive profit. Firms are still motivated to come in from the outside and enter this industry because positive profits are better than zero profits in their old industry. And again, the cycle keeps repeating and repeating. So where does this process stop? Well, what you'll notice here is that the supply curve keeps shifting out, and so the idea is when does the supply curve stop shifting out and stop lowering the price? Well, if we look at this $50, right, this $50 price is the technology B's, the new technology's break-even price, right? So if the price came down to, if the market price came down to $50, what does that mean? Well, first of all, we would hope at that point that any firms who have the old technology, realizing that they're just losing, their losses are increasing, that they've adopted the technology. But probably more importantly, when the price goes down to 50, the profit is exactly zero, and there's no longer any reason for firms to come in from other industries to enter this industry, because by this point they would be going from a zero profit in the old industry to a zero profit in the new industry. So in many respects, this is the mechanism, this price adjustment mechanism is what eventually chokes off the entrance into the market and reduces that shifting out of the supply curve, stops the decline in price, and brings our cycle to a halt finally. So one of the things to keep in mind is who benefits. Well, number one, if you look at this from the producer side, we have this idea of the early bird adopter who says, hey, if I find this technology first, I'll get the biggest profits, and I know that as people notice that I'm getting increased profits, other people will enter into the industry, or other people will adopt the technology, and the prices will start eventually falling. So that early adopter is always looking for the new technology. As soon as they've adopted one technology, they understand that it's just a limited amount of time until the profits get back to zero, and so they're motivated to look for the next technology and get that next big boost in the profits. On the demand side, on the consumer side, it's all upside, because what's happening is these kinds of technology adoptions are simply driving down the price that they have to pay. As the price comes down, consumers already buying the good might buy more units of the good, or you would find that consumers who initially did not buy the good because the price was above their marginal willingness to pay, that as the price comes down at or below their marginal willingness to pay, they start participating in the market, and they say, hey, this is good, we're now it's worth it for me to buy this good. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell this idea of how when market prices can adjust, what the implications of the technology change are. In the next video, we'll look at the situation of technology adoption in a context of fixed prices.